Nia's phone captured the ledger page just as a black-gloved hand closed the office door. Beyond the frosted glass, a string quartet played beneath the Moretti Hotel's chandeliers, each violin note softened by velvet walls and the low murmur of men who never raised their voices to be obeyed. Inside, the air smelled of cedar, old paper, and the bourbon sweating in a crystal tumbler beside the open book. Nia kept her thumb over the phone's darkened screen. One photograph, 3 columns of coded payments, and halfway down the page, a name she had not seen in 14 months, Marcus Bennett, her missing brother. She had entered the private gala carrying silver trays and wearing the hotel's white service jacket. If the photograph was discovered, she would leave without her job, her freedom, or perhaps any chance of learning why Marcus had vanished after working for the Moretti organization. The door clicked shut behind her. Adrian Moretti stood between Nia and the corridor, his charcoal suit absorbing the amber lamplight. He was not holding a weapon. That made the silence worse. A gold signet ring tapped once against the door handle before his hand fell still. Staff aren't permitted in this office. Nia slid the phone into her apron. The ledger remained open, its cream paper rough beneath her fingertips. Then someone should learn to lock it. Adrian's gaze moved from the book to her face. No shouting. No summons for security. Only the distant clink of champagne glasses and the faint mechanical hum of the ventilation system. He crossed the room with measured steps, and Nia forced herself not to retreat. His reputation had been built on making other people move first. She would not give him that. What did you photograph? A page. I can see that. He stopped across the desk. Why? Nia closed the ledger carefully. Her nails pressed crescents into the leather cover. Because my brother's name is in it. For the first time, Adrian's controlled expression shifted, not enough to resemble surprise, but enough for his jaw to lock. Marcus Bennett. Hearing the name in Adrian's voice sent cold pressure through her ribs. She had expected denial, perhaps a threat. She had not expected recognition. You knew him. He worked near people I know. That isn't what I asked. The quartet beyond the wall reached a bright, elegant crescendo. Adrian watched her as if the answer to a question had entered his office wearing a servant's uniform. Then he reached inside his jacket. Nia's shoulders tightened, but he withdrew only a small object wrapped in a folded white handkerchief. He placed it on the mahogany between them. Metal touched wood with a soft, final click. Nia unfolded the cloth. A scratched steel wristwatch lay beneath it, its cracked face frozen at 11:17. The worn brown strap had been repaired with dark thread in the same uneven stitches she had teased Marcus about for years. Her breath stopped. She lifted it, and the familiar weight settled into her palm. On the back, 2 initials caught the lamplight. MB, where did you get this? Her voice came out low and steady, though the watch trembled against her skin. Adrian did not reach for it. It was recovered from a car Marcus was supposed to be driving. Supposed to be? The car was empty. Nia looked toward the closed door, measuring the distance, the lock, the phone hidden against her hip. Adrian could have taken the evidence. He could have called guards. Instead, he had placed the first real trace of Marcus in her hand. That was not mercy. It was an invitation with invisible terms. You caught me stealing from you, she said, and you're giving me this. What? Adrian leaned one palm against the desk. Under the warm light, his shadow crossed the ledger and reached the edge of her uniform. Because people who want answers look at names. His eyes dropped briefly to the watch. People who want blood look at everything else. He straightened, leaving the office door closed and the choice between them. Are you looking for someone, or looking for revenge? Nia curled her fingers around Marcus's broken watch. The photograph on her phone could cost her freedom. Adrian's question could cost her the truth. And somewhere beyond that locked door, the music continued as if neither of them had just pulled the first thread. The bass from the ballroom softened behind the office walls, leaving only the muted tick of a brass clock and the bitter scent of Adrian's untouched espresso. Cold metal pressed into Nia's palm, where Marcus's damaged watch rested. After a long silence, she set it beside the ledger. Finding my brother comes first, Nia said. What happens after depends on what you did to him. Adrian's gaze sharpened, but she neither lowered her eyes nor stepped away. Instead, she unlocked her phone, deleted the photograph of the ledger page, and placed the device on his desk. The image vanished before he could demand it. Now neither of us owns the only copy, she said. So stop testing me and tell me why Marcus's name is in your books. It was the first move in the room Adrian had not controlled. Golden light slid across the mahogany as he opened a concealed drawer and removed 3 monthly revenue sheets. He aligned them beneath the lamp. Each page carried the same routes, the same vendors, and different totals. Someone inside my organization has been diverting money for 18 months, he said. Not enough at once to start a war. Enough to build an exit. His finger stopped beside a column marked with a small black circle. Marcus noticed the pattern. Nia's thumb brushed the cracked edge of the watch. Then he reported it to you. He requested a private meeting. Adrian's voice remained level, yet his hand flattened against the paper until the tendons showed. He disappeared before it happened. His car was found empty near the Hudson. This watch was inside. The clock clicked once. Twice. You think the thief killed him? Nia said. I think the thief made certain I would believe Marcus was dead. Adrian stepped around the desk, bringing with him the clean scent of cedar and rain from his coat. Your brother trusted someone close enough to approach without fear. That person still attends my meetings, drinks at my tables, and watches what I watch. Including me. Especially you. Nia picked up her phone but left the watch where it lay. Then arrest me. Fire me. Have security drag me through the ballroom so your people can see how powerful you are. Her voice never rose. But if you want my help, ask for it without pretending the cage is a favor. For the first time, Adrian's expression shifted, not into anger, but recognition. Everyone else in his orbit adjusted themselves to his silence. Nia had made him answer hers. He crossed to the door and turned the lock. The sharp click carried through the office. Then he removed a black access card from his wallet and set it on top of Marcus's watch. For 3 weeks, you'll serve as my private hospitality assistant. Every closed dinner, every financial meeting, every guest suite used by my capos. And my job downstairs. Preserved if you complete the assignment. Lost tonight if you refuse. The offer put her livelihood against the only opening she had found in 14 months, and both belonged to Adrian now. Nia studied the card's smooth surface, then pressed her fingertip onto it. I choose what I report. You don't use me to settle old grudges. Agreed. And if Marcus is alive, I reach him before your men do. A muscle moved once in Adrian's jaw. Agreed. She slid the card into her apron pocket and reclaimed the broken watch. Adrian opened the office door. Music and warm air rushed back in, carrying champagne, perfume, and the bright laughter of people who did not know the staff member passing them had just been granted access to their secrets. 3 weeks, he said quietly. Starting tomorrow at 7. Nia walked into the ballroom without looking back. Behind her, Adrian added the term that tightened the agreement around them both. Find the traitor before the traitor recognizes you. Silverware chimed against porcelain beneath the low murmur of men accustomed to being obeyed. Cold rain traced the windows of the Moretti Hotel's private dining room, while amber light gleamed across walnut paneling and a 12-foot table polished smooth as black glass. Nia stood behind Adrian's right shoulder, pouring mineral water as if the documents spread before him meant nothing to her. 3 days into her assignment, the room had learned to look through her. That made every careless word louder. A capo slid a shipping agreement across the table. Baltimore clears the containers, Newark receives them, and Moretti keeps the southern corridor. Adrian uncapped a fountain pen. Beside the signature line, for tiny diamonds had been stamped into the margin. Nia's hand stopped above his glass. Marcus had drawn those same diamonds on grocery receipts when teaching her how to audit his side business. 1 meant deferred payment. 2 marked a silent partner. For Mint, the listed asset was already pledged elsewhere. The agreement offered Adrian a route his organization would not legally control. Once his first shipment entered the corridor, the hidden creditor could seize the cargo, expose the shell companies, and close the route before sunrise. Don't sign it. The water continued pouring for half a second, spilling over the rim and pattering onto the leather blotter. Every voice died. Adrian's pen hovered a fraction of an inch above the paper. The capo leaned back, his cigar releasing a bitter ribbon of smoke. The staff speaks in closed meetings now. Nia set down the bottle. Condensation chilled her fingertips, but her eyes remained on the 4 diamonds. That symbol transfers priority to an unnamed secured party. You aren't buying a route. You're accepting liability for one somebody else already owns. A chair creaked at the far end. Adrian did not defend her. He turned the contract toward himself and read the narrow print beneath the custom schedule. "Show me." Nia stepped to the table, crossing the invisible boundary between service and authority. She placed one finger beside the diamonds, then followed their sequence to 4 matching invoice numbers buried across separate exhibits. These appear unrelated because the dates and ports differ. Add the final digits. They point to Schedule 17. Adrian opened the schedule. A clause near the bottom granted immediate control of the southern corridor to a holding company if Moretti cargo entered without written clearance. Silence pressed against the rain-streaked glass. Adrian capped his pen. Who owns the holding company? The capo's cuff shifted as he reached for his cigar, revealing a pulse beating hard at his wrist. A routine intermediary. Then you won't mind waiting while my counsel verifies it. Adrian tore the signature page once, then again. The sound was soft, almost delicate. The agreement that could have cost him the route fell into 4 pieces. Nia had stopped the loss, but every man at the table was looking at her now, not as a server, and not as someone invisible. One of them glanced at the water stain, then at her face, measuring. Adrian collected the torn pages and rose. Meeting adjourned. Chairs scraped backward. Leather shoes crossed the carpet, carrying tobacco smoke and restrained questions into the corridor. When the door shut, Adrian remained beside the table. Marcus taught you that code. It was not a question. Nia wiped the spilled water with a linen cloth, each movement controlled. He taught me never to sign what powerful men are impatient to close. Adrian's gaze settled on the diamonds. You saved my route, and exposed myself doing it. Yes. He lifted the internal copy of the agreement. Across its cover, in blue ink, someone had written the hospitality rotation for the meeting. Nia's name was circled. Her room position had been chosen before she arrived. Adrian held the page where she could see it. Someone expected you to recognize the trap. Footsteps stopped outside the door. The handle began to turn. Adrian placed the agreement in Nia's hands, reversing the balance in the room with 5 quiet words. Now let's see who reacts. The door opened on the dry whisper of expensive wool. 2 Moretti guards entered first, followed by 3 capos carrying phones that glowed against the room's amber light. The air conditioner breathed cold across the polished table, but the scent of burnt contract paper still lingered. Nia kept the agreement in both hands. Adrian watched the men spread out instead of taking their seats. One phone slid across the mahogany and stopped beneath his fingers. On its screen was a bank transfer bearing Nia's name, followed by photographs of her entering restricted hotel offices after midnight. Another showed messages sent from her employee account to a rival shipping company. The timestamps covered 6 months. Your waitress has been selling us, one capo said. Nia studied the images without touching the phone. The photograph was real. She recognized the service corridor and the stain near the freight elevator. But the date belonged to a night she had worked a wedding upstairs, and the recipient account contained Marcus's old initials arranged backward. Whoever had manufactured the evidence knew enough to make denial sound desperate. Adrian opened the transfer record. A muscle shifted once beside his jaw. Freeze every account connected to her, a capo demanded. And search her apartment. Already done, another replied. He placed a clear evidence sleeve on the table. Inside lay a Moretti access card and a flash drive labeled with the Southern Shipping Corridor. Nia's apartment key hung from the sleeve's seal. The betrayal had not merely framed her. It had entered her home. Adrian rose, and the leather chair rolled backward with a muted scrape. Everyone out except Nia. No one moved. The oldest capo stepped closer. You trusted her warning. Now your route survives while our records sit in her apartment. If she walks away, every man in this organization will know whose word matters more, hers or ours. The accusation settled heavier than shouting. Adrian had destroyed the trapped agreement because Nia had been right. Defending her now would turn judgment into favoritism and suspicion into open defiance. He picked up the phone, called security, and ordered the evidence logged for internal review. Then he faced Nia. You're coming with me. To answer questions? To remain where I can control what happens next. The elevator descended beneath a white ceiling light that flattened every reflection. Nia stood between 2 guards while Adrian occupied the opposite corner, silent beneath the mechanical hum. At the underground garage, cold rain hissed beyond the concrete entrance. A black sedan carried them 12 miles north, through iron gates, and up a cypress-lined drive toward the Moretti estate. Nia counted each turn until privacy glass rose between them and the driver. "You knew I didn't send those messages," she said. Adrian removed Marcus's damaged watch from his coat and closed it inside his fist. "Knowing is not the same as proving. So you lock me away to protect your authority. I can fine you because someone just put enough evidence in front of my capos to justify making you disappear." The estate doors opened onto marble floors cold enough to penetrate her thin work shoes. Cedar smoke drifted from a distant fireplace. Adrian led her past the main staircase to an east wing suite where the windows were sealed. The telephone had no outside line, and a guard took position beyond the door. Nia tested the brass handle after it closed. Locked. On the desk lay fresh clothes, food, and her hotel identification badge, clipped cleanly in half. Her livelihood was gone. Her freedom had become conditional. Through the window, iron fencing disappeared into rain and darkness. Adrian remained on the other side of the glass-paneled door. "Until I expose whoever forged this, you do not leave the estate." Nia held the 2 pieces of her badge against her palm. "And if your people decide you've protected me long enough." His eyes stayed on hers as he turned the key. "Then they come through me first." Footsteps carried him down the corridor, leaving one guard outside and cameras glowing red at both ends. Nia looked from the sealed window to the broken badge. The unseen traitor no longer needed to hunt her through the hotel. Adrian Moretti had placed her at the center of his house and locked every exit himself. By dawn, the capos would demand a verdict. Rain tapped the sealed windows in a patient, metallic rhythm, while the corridor cameras blinked red against the blue-black hour before dawn. At 2:13 a.m., the guard outside Nia's room accepted a coffee tray from a housekeeper, never noticing the narrow strip of brass missing from its decorative rim. Nia had noticed it hours earlier. She slid the strip beneath the old service lock connecting her room to a linen passage, pressed until the mechanism clicked, and stepped into air that smelled of starch, cedar polish, and cold stone. She did not run toward the gates. Instead, she descended through the silent service wing, crossed the estate kitchen beneath dim copper lights, and slipped into the garage while rain hissed across the courtyard. 40 minutes later, soaked sleeves clung to her wrists as she entered the 24-hour lobby of a modest office building in Newark. Samuel Price, Marcus's former attorney, was waiting upstairs beneath a flickering fluorescent tube, his tie loose and a cardboard archive box open on his desk. "Your brother told me to release this only if the Morettis accused you using his initials," he said. From a legal envelope, he removed a small digital recorder wrapped in faded blue cloth. Nia pressed play. Static filled the room, followed by Marcus's voice, thinner than she remembered, but unmistakable. "Nia, if you're hearing this, I'm alive. Don't trust the evidence they build around my name. Someone needs me breathing until I tell them where I put the original records." The message ended with a scrape of metal and 3 dull bells in the distance. Price reached for the recorder. Nia closed her hand around it. By leaving the estate, she had violated Adrian's order and destroyed the protection attached to it. Returning meant facing the capos as an escaped prisoner. Staying away meant leaving Marcus inside the hands of whoever had kept him alive for 14 months. "Make a copy," she said. "Send it outside New Jersey if I don't call by sunrise." Then she turned back toward the rain. At 3:41 a.m., the estate alarms began to howl. White security lights flooded the wet gravel as Nia walked through the front gate with both hands visible. Armed men poured onto the steps, but she did not slow. Adrian emerged last, without a coat, his white shirt open at the throat. Rain darkened his hair. Fury held his jaw rigid. "You escaped my house," he said. No, Nia stopped 6 feet from him and raised the recorder. "I chose to come back." The distinction struck harder than defiance. Adrian lifted one hand, and every weapon lowered. Inside his study, firelight moved across black walnut shelves while water dripped from Nia's clothes onto the rug. The recorder played between them. At the sound of Marcus's voice, Adrian's fingers tightened against the desk until his knuckles whitened. The accusation against Nia no longer controlled the room. A living witness did. "Your brother can prove who framed you," Adrian said quietly. "But whoever holds him knows he can damage my entire organization." Nia placed the recorder beside Marcus's broken wristwatch. Two traces of the same missing man, separated by 14 months, now rested under Adrian's hand. You asked whether I wanted Marcus or revenge, she said. I want you to decide what one innocent life is worth when saving it could cost you everything. Beyond the study doors, the capos were gathering for judgment. Adrian looked toward their approaching shadows, then back at the recorder. For the first time, the prisoner had returned by choice, and the man who locked her in was the one left without an escape. Bring them in, he ordered. They're going to hear what I choose. The recorder clicked off, and the study filled with the low hum of the heating vents and the faint scent of cedar smoke. One by one, the capos entered beneath the amber chandelier, their polished shoes striking black marble like a countdown. Adrian waited until the doors closed, then slid a shipping map across the desk. Nia stood near the bookcase under armed watch, her hotel badge gone, Marcus's broken wristwatch cold inside her palm. Belandi controls the transfer point, Adrian said. They'll trade Marcus's location for the southern corridor. A murmur passed around the room. That route carried Moretti freight through 3 ports and produced more revenue than every hotel contract combined. Surrendering it would not bruise the organization. It would cut out its strongest artery. No, one capo said. Another planted both hands on the desk. We don't pay enemies for a service worker's brother. Adrian's gaze hardened. You're not paying. He uncapped a fountain pen. I am. The nib scratched across the transfer agreement. Nia stepped forward, drawing 2 guards closer. If you sign that, they'll call it weakness. They already call mercy weakness, Adrian replied. I'm finished letting them decide what words mean. He signed his full name and pressed the Moretti seal into warm red wax. The stamp landed with a dull, final thud. A secure phone rang seconds later. Adrian placed it on speaker, and a Belandi representative confirmed receipt of the deed before giving them an address, an abandoned cold storage facility 18 miles south of the city. Marcus had been held there for 6 weeks. Nia's fingers closed around the wristwatch until its cracked edge bit into her skin. Adrian had obtained what she came for, but the ink drying beneath his hand had purchased more than a location. It had bought open rebellion. Chairs scraped backward. The eldest capo removed the silver Moretti pin from his lapel and set it beside the signed deed. By family charter, control is suspended when the head voluntarily transfers a principal asset without council consent. 2 others placed their pins down after his. Their small metallic clicks sounded sharper than gunfire in the silent room. Adrian could have called his guards. He could have destroyed the contract, denied the call, or forced every man present to kneel. Instead, he removed the signet ring that authorized Moretti orders and laid it on the marble. Then suspend me. The eldest capo took the ring. Effective immediately, Adrian lost command of the estate security, the shipping network, and every crew sworn to his office. The men who had entered awaiting Nia's judgment walked out carrying Adrian's authority instead. Cold air spilled through the open doors, lifting the corner of the map. Nia crossed the room and stopped beside him. You built your life around never losing control. Adrian watched the red wax harden beneath the chandelier. No, I inherited a life that taught me control was the only thing keeping people alive. Beyond the windows, engines started across the courtyard. The family's vehicles were already being reassigned, and the guards outside had turned their backs to await orders from someone else. Nia placed Marcus's watch beside Adrian's abandoned seal. We have the address. But no men, Adrian said. A bolt slid into place beyond the study doors. The new council had not merely removed him from command. It had locked him inside his own estate while Marcus remained 18 miles away. For the first time, Nia was the only person in the room who still had a choice. A thin draft hissed through the fireplace vent, carrying cedar smoke across the locked study as headlights swept past the tall windows. Outside, tires ground over frozen gravel. Then the departing convoy vanished beyond the iron gates, taking Adrian's soldiers and his authority with it. Nia lifted Marcus's watch from beside the hardened seal. Its second hand stuttered beneath scratched glass. You said the assignment sheet was marked, she said. Someone placed me in that meeting because they knew I would recognize Marcus's code. Adrian turned toward the dark mahogany desk. Only 3 people controlled hotel assignments and financial access. 2 answered to you. Nia closed her fingers around the watch. Who did the third answer to? Silence tightened between them. Adrian crossed to a bronze panel concealed behind the bookcase and pressed his thumb against its scanner. A red light flashed. Access denied. The council had stripped more than his title. Nia stepped closer, studying the narrow seam around the panel. Hotel service locks used the same emergency release, hidden low so smoke-blinded employees could find it by touch. She slid Adrian's abandoned seal beneath the brass lip and twisted. Metal scraped stone. The panel opened. Inside sat a black archive box, its lid dustless, its latch stamped with an old Moretti crest. Adrian froze before touching it. My father's private records. Nia set Marcus's watch into a circular indentation on the latch. It fit. A mechanism snapped open. Marcus didn't leave you a memory, she said. He left you a key. Cold white light spilled from the box onto their hands. Inside lay original shipping ledgers, a cassette, and a yellowed photograph of Adrian's father beside Marcus and Samuel Price. Across the back, Marcus had written one name, Vittorio Moretti. Adrian fed the cassette into an old recorder. Static crackled, followed by Marcus's strained voice. If Nia found this, Vittorio used my initials. I am alive because I hid the originals. He cannot kill me until he has them. Paper whispered as Nia opened the oldest ledger. Payments to the holding company began 2 days before Adrian's father died. Beneath them sat a transfer authorizing Vittorio to assume emergency control, signed in ink that had bled differently from every signature above it. Adrian pulled open a second file. The official report called his father's death an accident. Stapled behind it was a private statement from the family physician, sedative found in his blood, report suppressed by order of V. Moretti. No elaborate code remained. Vittorio had killed Adrian's father, buried the evidence, and shaped the grieving heir into the weapon that protected his stolen empire. Marcus had discovered the foundation beneath it all. The locked doors suddenly opened. Vittorio stood beyond them in a charcoal overcoat, flanked by 2 council guards. Warm corridor light edged his silver hair, and snow melted silently from his polished shoes. His gaze settled on the open box. Your father was too gentle to keep this family alive, he said. Adrian's jaw tightened, but Nia moved first. She took the original ledger, crossed to the fireplace, and held its corner over the blue flame. Vittorio raised one hand. Both guards stopped. Marcus dies if that burns. Then you need what I'm holding, Nia said, her eyes steady. And we need Marcus breathing. The flame curled within an inch of the paper. For the first time, Vittorio's smile disappeared. Put it down. Nia did not move. Take us to my brother. Behind her, Adrian closed the archive box and stepped beside her, not in front. Vittorio looked from the ledger to the nephew whose life he had designed, then removed a phone from his coat. You have until midnight, he said. After that, there will be no brother left to save, and no Moretti name for Adrian to inherit. The grandfather clock struck 11, each bronze note rolling through the archive while blue fire whispered beneath the ledger in Nia's hand. Vittorio's guards waited near the door, wool coats damp with winter rain, but Adrian watched his uncle's phone instead. Open the line to Marcus, he said. Vittorio's mouth curved. You no longer give orders. Adrian removed the Moretti signet ring from his finger and placed it on the stone mantel. Its small metallic click carried farther than the clock. Then this isn't an order. He turned toward the guards. It's testimony. From inside his jacket, Adrian drew the recorder containing Marcus's message and set it beside the archive box. He named the frozen accounts, the forged authority, and the evidence connecting Vittorio to his father's death. Then he pressed the intercom linked to the estate security room. Every word traveled through the house. Vittorio crossed the rug and killed the transmission, but the confession had already reached the men's station beyond the archive. Muffled voices rose in the corridor. You just destroyed your name, Vittorio said. No, Adrian's eyes moved to Nia. I surrendered my claim to it. He opened the archive box and slid the succession document into the fireplace. Wax seals blistered. Heavy paper blackened at the edges, filling the room with the bitter smell of scorched ink. Nia lowered the ledger from the flame. Adrian had removed the inheritance Vittorio could use to control him, but he had also discarded the last legal shield between himself and the organization now surrounding the room. Vittorio's expression hardened. Without that name, you leave here as nothing. Without it, Adrian replied, you have nothing left to threaten. Nia crossed to the desk. where Marcus's watch rested against the dark wood. Samuel Price had once shown her the safeguard attached to the original ledger. If she failed to check in by midnight, copies would be released to federal authorities and every family named in the accounts. She turned the watch's hidden crown. A red indicator appeared beneath the cracked crystal. Vittorio heard the faint electronic chirp. "Stop it. Bring Marcus to the hotel loading dock by midnight," Nia said, "and I cancel the release after I see him alive." "You think paper protects you?" No, her fingers closed around the watch. "It makes killing us expensive." Outside, guards began striking the locked archive door with their shoulders. Dust trembled from the frame. The brass handle shuddered under each blow. Adrian stepped toward Nia, but this time he offered no command and raised no protective arm. "If we walk out together," he said quietly, "there is no estate, no counsel, and no way back." Nia placed the original ledger inside her service bag and handed him Marcus's recorder. "Then don't walk behind me." The door burst inward. Cold hallway lights spilled across the carpet as armed men crowded the threshold, waiting for Vittorio's order. Adrian left the signet ring beside the burning succession papers and moved to Nia's side. Vittorio lifted his phone, his thumb hovering over a single number. "The loading dock," he told the person who answered. "Bring Marcus, and prepare for the ledger exchange." The line went dead. 11:42 glowed on the clock's digital alarm panel. 18 minutes remained, and for the first time, Adrian had chosen to enter the trap without owning any part of it. Cold rain rattled against the loading dock's corrugated awning, while fluorescent tubes washed the wet concrete in a sickly white glare. At 11:57, a black sedan rolled backward through the steel gate and stopped beside 3 silent delivery trucks. Nia stepped from the shadows first, her service bag against her hip, Marcus's watch locked around her wrist. Adrian walked beside her in an unmarked coat, without guards, ring, or inherited authority. Vittorio waited beneath the awning. The ledger. A rear door opened. Marcus emerged with an escort gripping his arm. His face was hollow beneath the harsh light, but he was standing, alive. "Nia, don't give him anything," Marcus said. The escort shoved him forward. Adrian caught Marcus before his knees struck the pavement, taking the brother's weight instead of reaching for the ledger. Nia watched Vittorio's eyes follow the service bag. Then she pressed the watch's crown. A clear electronic chime answered from her phone. "Samuel Price's safeguard requires Marcus's living voice," she said. "Once he confirms he's free, the records go into legal custody. If he doesn't, they go to federal authorities." Vittorio's mouth tightened. "You promised an exchange. I promised you a chance to deliver him alive." Nia held the phone toward Marcus. Wind drove cold mist beneath the awning, carrying diesel fumes and the metallic smell of rain. Marcus looked at Adrian, still supporting him, then into the phone. "This is Marcus Bennett. I am alive. I am no longer in Moretti custody." The screen turned green. Safeguard complete. The original ledger had never been Vittorio's to recover. It now belonged to Samuel's protected legal file. Vittorio reached inside his coat, but his own men did not move with him. Adrian placed Marcus behind Nia and faced his uncle empty-handed. "You taught them loyalty belonged to whoever controlled the inheritance," he said. "I burned it." From the hotel speakers came Adrian's earlier broadcast, Vittorio's confession, the forged authority, the suppressed evidence surrounding Adrian's father. Every worker, guard, and capo inside the building had heard it. Vittorio issued one final command. No one obeyed. Sirens rose beyond the gate, blue and red light sliding across puddles and polished car doors. Samuel Price entered with federal agents and took custody of the ledger file, while 2 officers led Vittorio away beneath the same awning where he had expected to reclaim his empire. Adrian never looked back. Dawn found the 3 of them in the hotel's empty dining room. Marcus sat wrapped in a gray blanket, steam lifting from untouched coffee. Nia removed his watch and laid it in his palm. Across the room, morning light softened the marble columns that had once made her feel small. "What happens to you now?" she asked Adrian. He placed his former office key on the table. "Whatever I build without that name." Nia studied the man who had first drawn her into his world, then watched him surrender every thread he could have used to keep her there. She offered her hand, not as an employee, not as a prisoner, and not as someone waiting to be rescued. Adrian took it and rose beside her. Together they walked through the front doors into the cold gold light, while the Moretti Hotel receded behind them. He had inherited a web built from fear, but she taught him that love begins only where possession ends.